Good evening. At least it is here in the Galilee. It's Monday, March the 7th, and I wanted to bring you a barley update. I'm just going to tell you, just going to cut straight to the chase, first of all, and then I'll break it down for you. We do not have an omer yet of dough barley. What is dough barley? Dough barley is a kernel that I can open with my fingernail. And when I break it in half, I'll drop a picture here so you can see. And when I break it in half, you can see the starch inside. There's no more slime left. And when I roll it between my index finger and my thumb, it reacts like dough. And so that's the condition that I'm looking at. I'm looking at a fully formed grain of barley that's full of starch. And we do not yet have that. But I'm telling you, we are so close. It's painful. So stay with me and I'll start breaking down everything I saw today. So the reason I went out to check the barley today was because in my Facebook nature groups, I belong to several of them, whether it's for foraging or just photography of beautiful places around Israel, the Weather Channel. I mean, just a lot of informational groups on Facebook. We're showing a significant change to the season in other areas by just changes on the land. And I felt like it was time that I go out and take another look at the flax. You may remember last week I told you I thought this week we would see the flax in bloom in the Galilee. So because of the changes I was seeing on my groups, I hopped in the car and I went and checked the location for the flax. And sure enough, as you can tell by the photo here, I did find flax. There were several little pockets of flax on the hillside there. And if you haven't seen the shorts that I made when I found the flax, they're kind of cute. I'm having a lot of fun with the YouTube shorts. But go ahead and take a look at the shorts and you'll see that there's several areas of flax on that hillside in that area. And even after I got in the car and left and went down the corner and continued on down the hill, I could look back up the hill in a lower area I had not descended to, and I saw even more flax on the lower area. So the flax was a cue or a clue to me that I needed to go take a look at the barley, because you may remember that I use Exodus 9:31 and 32 to determine the condition of the barley. That the verses say that when the plague of hail and fire hit Egypt, that the flax was in bowl. And the King James bowl, that word means the shape of like a goblet. It was a goblet bloom. And the Hebrew says it is in bloom. And it says that the the wheat and the spelt, they believe it was spelt rather than rye. The wheat and the spelt were afilot. And I know there's another definition out there. And if the person using that definition would use all the elements in Exodus 9:31 and 32, I believe they would have a different outcome on their understanding. But anyway, so the flax was in bloom today. And so that was a signal to me. It was time again to go look at the barley. So the very first location I'm taking you to here is the field from last year. I have been checking this field, and there is no barley in there that's an acceptable level to bake a wave sheaf. Not only that, but the soft dough barley that I found in the field wasn't enough, but you wouldn't have been able to put a sickle to one location to harvest it. But what I'm showing you in the video is the fact that if you look at the plants, now let me back up a little bit here. One of the things that I have understood differently since last year has been really basically because of the class I took, and that is about harvesting the wild medicinal plants on the land of Israel. And one of the things that Orly really pushed home is looking at the plant and understanding where the energy of the plant is going. And yes, I did know that before, but she broke it down so specifically for me that it really became just part of what I do, because where the plant in medicinal herbs, where the plant sends its energy, is the constituents that are available in this plant. So in other words, if you want a root tincture, then you're going to take the plant when it's very, very young and tender, while all the energy is still down in the root. So in this video, what I'm showing you is I'm showing you the yellowing of the stalks, and how the stalks are not green like they were, and how the energy of the plant is starting to move up the plant. But again, in this location, there is no dough barley acceptable to harvest in quantities yet. Interesting thing about this location is I kind of written it off, but with our pop-in weather, I'm not going to write this location completely off, because in this area the barley is more sparse than the other areas I've been looking at. And sparse barley means the ground is going to warm up faster than barley that is super thick and lush and the sun can't penetrate to the earth. So I'm not ready to write this barley off yet. It is a shorter barley. It is more sparse in the field than the other locations. So it still could come out to be the one that gives us the omer. Before we move on, I do want to make mention that I'm not in agreement with Devorah Gordon's statement about the field. She didn't really say in her video that she was at this location, but you will recognize it, because she's saying in the video that the sheep had eaten the tops out of all the heads of barley. So here's my disagreement with that statement. Yes, the sheep have been in the field, and they've been in the field on the east edge. There's a gravel road that's been put into the field to the lower compound that had been developed. And along that gravel road on the east edge, absolutely Asher's sheep have been in there. But you know, grazing animals, if there's anything good in that head at all that would make them to take one bite, they're going to bite the whole head off and not leave 50% of the heads in a field of barley. There would have been no heads in that. So I do want to just bring that point out, and it's okay that we disagree. It's not a competition. I may have some more experience with animals than she does. That's possible. I don't know that, but that's possible. But logically, if you have a grazing animal, or you've watched a grazing animal, they bite that plant off as low as they can. And in fact, along that eastern edge, you could see where the sheep had been in there, and it had been eaten quite low at one point, and it had begun to grow back up. But yeah, there's nothing in this field of barley past that east edge that has been eaten by the sheep. The whole thing has been nicely preserved this year, and that's because there's been a couple of stray dogs there that Asher hasn't taken his sheep into that field this year. And I've been feeding those stray dogs to make sure they stay there and guard that barley. So I'm pretty sure of what went on there. You know, back to those dogs just for a minute. It was so funny last year. Norman Willis had said, well, maybe we can ask Asher to keep his sheep out of the barley over there. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. But now here this year, we have actually someone has sent us dogs to watch the barley in this field. And yeah, it's intact and it's in beautiful condition, because there is a mother dog there with 2 pups, and she's not letting any sheep or anybody on that property that didn't bring her something to eat. So she's done a really good job of guarding that upper end of the field. So this next field is one of the fields over by Bet Chaon. There are 2 over there I've been watching. And what I want you to see in this photo is that we're starting to get yellow patches in the barley where it looks like we should be starting to see some dough barley. Remember what I said dough was. I can cut it open. I can see the starch in there. If I rub it between my forefinger and my thumb, there's no slimy, there's no liquid, and it just rolls into a dough ball. So it looks like it should be there, but it's just not quite there. It's just not. It's still got a little slime left in those grains, in those areas. The rest of the field is further behind. I've noted the last time that I did the inspection there. Actually, we did. I had help that time. That the far south end was more developed than the north end, and that still holds true here, that the south end. Now, what would the other inspectors say about this specific field? Well, of course, they're going to say it's not a beeb. Well, so am I. I'm saying it's not a beeb. So let me help you and help them out there, since this is not a competition. It's about giving information and allowing people to choose for themselves that this would not be a field that was coming to a stage of a more mature grain that was indivisible by the fingernail. That's what the rest of the groups would want. For me, I'm just looking for an omer's worth from this field, and I'm telling you that it's not there yet. So the next place I went was out on Highway 90. And it's a location that Devorah's group, Devorah's Date Tree, and Yoel Halevi stopped there. It is a location that Abib of God does not use. Abib of God has always thought very poorly of the location because of the stones. But the Karaites, Devorah's group, going back even to Nehemiah, and Yoel Halevi stopped there. And so this year I thought, well, just let me go consider this area, because, I had heard that there was some possibility of dough beginning to form in some of these grains. And I thought, just let me go, myself, put my eyes on this location and see, really, just now that I've got a couple of years under my belt, because the first couple of years when I was with the Abib of God, that was a very undesirable location. So now I've got a couple of years under my belt, and I'm thinking, let me just go take a look at it. And frankly, I was thinking that all of you guys that are feeling so much stress and pressure because you feel like we're running out of time, I thought maybe there'll be something there that I can say, yay, you made it. You can go make your plans now. I mean, that was the reason I went out there, for you guys more than anything. I am not stressed about these locations I've been looking at. I really believe there's time, and I really believe it's going to be fine. But I just said, let me go look at this location. Based on everything I've had, let me look at the location and let me consider the location. And unfortunately, for me personally, I did not find this an acceptable location. And I was really quite disappointed, because had it been an acceptable location, guess who could be on vacation right now from looking at barley? Because honestly, this was probably the most advanced area I had seen. But what I was also seeing on the ground that was rocky, it wasn't just a rocky field. And I'm going to drop a picture here to show you what I'm talking about. It wasn't just a rocky field. This was building debris. You could see where these stones had come out of a structure that had once stood there. And in fact, some of the stones were still linear. In other words, there were like rows and angles where stone walls probably once stood, and as that was torn down, then the debris was left there. So from my understanding of an acceptable field where you could actually sow a crop to reap a harvest, This would not be that. The wheat that I plant here on the property, the ancient wheat, I always plant it here every year. What I do is I pull the weeds up by hand. I take my garden hoe, I chop up the earth, I smooth it out, and I throw the seeds out. I could not do this in this location. The stones were very big, and there were piled rows of stones that were building debris. So for these reasons, this area does not meet my criteria of a field that could be sowed. And again, I want to say that because it's my criteria, it's okay if it's not somebody else's criteria. This is not a competition. I'm trying to set a standard where we all can be okay, that people can make their own decisions about what is required fearfully, what is required, make that decision fearfully, and say, this is what I believe, and to say it clearly so that other people can then hear the words that are spoken, make the choice to align or not to align with an inspector. So if Devorah's group and Yoel Halevi continue to inspect there, that's perfectly fine with me. It's just that for me, this is not a legitimate location. A week ago, this field was so much greener than it is now. And in fact, if you look at it, it's beginning to pick up almost a golden color to the green that the field presents to you. But what's really interesting is there is very, very, very little dough in this field. There's not enough to call an omer. And it has only been just a few days for this big change. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to show you what Orly taught me. We're going to go all the way down to the earth, and we're going to look and see what's happening to the plant at just above the root where it's coming out of the earth. And you're going to see something very interesting, and that is that this plant is dying. There's no vitality at the base of the plant where it's against the earth. All of the energy of this plant is currently being put directly into making a seed. You know, it's really just amazing to me as I look at this video again with you, and I dig down in against that soil, and I look at the beginning of where that plant is coming out of the earth. It's really just amazing to me that this is not yet an acceptable stage of development, but it's just not quite there yet. There is nothing wrong with this field. It is not diseased. You have to remember that this barley has been out of the boot. The heads have been born. I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay away from that. The heads have been born for over a month in this area. That the plant itself came out of the earth more than 90 days ago. I mean, we're approaching now 90 days plus about 14. We're approaching 104 days that this plant has been above the earth. It is just at the end of its life cycle. In my opinion, the only reason it has not kicked over is because there's still so much moisture just from the pure denseness of these plants in the field. This is one of the luscious, this is the luscious year I have ever seen in my short 7 years in the land of Israel, the barley is so thick and so lush that it's my opinion that the general moisture of the plants have kept the barley from maturing to the level that we were seeking before now. So the painful truth is that we are painfully close to having what we're looking for. It is so close, but we are just not there yet. All I can do is ask you to be patient and wait on the Creator to finish His work. As Genesis says, wait on the one that created heaven and earth to finish his dutyship or deputyship in the field. He's just not quite finished there. But I am confident that we're going to see what we need before wave sheaf. It is going to be close. You know, things are never boring when you're sitting on the front row watching the work of Elohim. But I have every confidence with what's going on. The flax, and I'll drop a picture here. I even found spelt today. The wild spelt is recognizable. You know, it's just so close. What can I tell you? It's just so close, but we're just not there yet. So thanks for watching. And as soon as anything changes, I will let you know. I don't withhold reports. It's very late here. I'm very tired. I've been gone all day long, and I'm going to try to get this video wrapped up and call it a night. Laila Tov from the Galilee. This is Rivka.